Hello, good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. This lovely Monday morning, I am Chamberlain. So look who's back.
I know, you know.
Welcome back.
And I know that's why it's lovely for you, Chamberlain.
Okay, what can I say? Well, yes, of course.
Indeed. Good morning. A great pleasure to be back indeed after a week in neighboring Liberia. Quite an experience. I cannot wait to share with you the things that we have learned from neighboring Liberia. Even getting there was an experience. I mean, just think about traveling the West African region, or even traveling within Africa. A lot of lessons to learn, a lot of things to ponder upon. But the people of Liberia, I mean, a lot of lessons to learn from these people who have shown their resilience and their will and determination to build their country again. I can only hope, and I'm sure that everybody else is hoping alongside them, that their political actors will also show the same will and resilience to respect whatever the will of the people will be.
So, well, we can confirm that your name is Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. I haven't heard that this morning, so good morning to you and welcome back. Amaya Makinde, good morning and welcome. It's October 16, it's a Monday morning, and you're welcome to the program. Chamberlain, I'm wondering if we would ever have had anything like palliatives in Monrovia. Should I be asking Maokwe?
Palliatives in Monrovia? Oh dear, well, I don't know. You can ask her. What's he wondering that if we have palliatives in Monrovia? Where is that ever come from?
They have been through a lot. I mean, even the fact that, well, they've had palliatives. Don't forget that this is a people who had a very terrible civil war, which ended in 2003. I mean, the civil war went on for many years. And rebuilding their country meant that they had to take more than palliatives. They were built up again or assisted up again by an entire United Nations mission, which went on for many years. I mean, and this is the first time that the people of the country are conducting their elections by themselves. So that's a really big deal. The elections were funded by the people of Liberia, of course, with some support from international observers, which is about the same support we get as well from ECOWAS, from the European Union, etc. I mean, stable countries like ourselves have had that kind of support, so how much more Liberia? But this one election was funded by them, organized by their own National Electoral Commission. So yes, I mean, they have a history of palliatives. If it's about palliatives, they know what it is that they're talking about. But I think they're trying to win themselves of their dependence. And not also forget that they were also struck, very violently by Ebola, that disease. And sadly, I think that relationship we had with them, Mr. Sawyer bringing in Ebola to Nigeria, thankfully didn't get very far. But, I mean, that wreaked havoc in their country, They lost many lives as a result of that. The economy suffered also as a result of that. So, yes, they're no strangers to palliatives. I don't know if it's what you're talking about, I mean, the type that we're sharing here in Nigeria. But, hey, these are people who are also determined not to be hooked or dependent on whatever palliative or aid that, they're being given.
So we'll certainly look forward to that account. And that's why it's incredibly important that just as you highlighted, they respect the decision that the people have taken, because if that doesn't happen, you could imagine, we don't even have an idea how many years it will be set back if it goes wrong. That's why we always talk about letting institutions work. But back here, there's been several complaints concerning this palliative distribution, which we have highlighted time and again, in terms of the transparency, what exactly is being distributed? Is it according to what the people need? What kind of impacts will it have on the people? I know it's supposed to be on a short-term basis, but some have been speaking, while several others are afraid for their lives. They've been stifled. They think that the government in the states, whichever states now they complain, might bring down the might on them, asking them, hey, don't speak up about some of these things. But a few of them found their voice, albeit temporarily, because following through, it was tough. Here's one of such, by the way.
Black Iwan Sosa. I am the chairman of Shokaye. For now, I am the chairman Shokaye CDA. And I was just at home now, and they brought this for me. as palliative for the whole of Shokaye estate. In this estate, we have 147 houses with families and tenants living there. I'm confused now. I don't know how to share this for 147 households in Shokaye estate. If you guys, the government, I'm talking to Dakpo Abiodun now, if you people know you cannot do something, don't do it. We are not hungry, we are not beggars, so we don't need your rice as palliative. This is not even one bag. This is not up to an eighth of a bag of rice. Tí ó bá ṣe é ṣe, ẹ má force ara yín láti ṣe, à ń ṣe lébi mi báyìí. So èmi aláìkí ń gbé rice yìí padà, kó bá mi gbé lọ fún Dàpọ̀ Abíọ́dún, kó gbé padà sí ọ̀gá ẹ̀ Tinubu.
Well, clearly that is not the only. In fact, I don't think that's the first of such videos. Another one made the rounds before this one. I saw this one later, but there was another one that's exactly the same size of bag from, of course, you could see that the logo of the Ogun State government is right there on the bag, and a good number of people are wondering exactly what is that. Some of these people have had to speak out because the report will get to their constituents, the people who are under that community development association, that the state government has sent palliatives to their chairman. And if the chairman comes out and says, well, what they gave me wasn't anything, of course you can imagine how much that would affect the integrity of the chairman or the people in the environment. It's also been in the news, the conversation between the state government of Ogun State and the chairman of the local governments all across the state, going to pay obeisance of some sorts to the state governor. So one is wondering exactly how this whole thing is playing out. Is this in any way demonstrating concern for the people? Chamberlain, we've also often asked that question here. Each state got 2 billion naira, with an assured 3 billion naira also still coming. And a number of other things have been, passed on to them. Without conversing with people, without having adequate communication with people, guess what? These are the kind of things that has existed so far. We also saw, distribution of these palliatives in several other parts of the country. There was a particular one that we saw where the video was viral of people going with big bags of some, maybe rice, maybe grains, whatever it is, from this particular place and just going away with it. Whether or not it was distributed by the government, one would wait to see. We haven't heard any complaint about that one. But at the end of the day, what is important is that there is a carry along of the people in all of this. If it is not enough, can someone come out and speak to the people that it is not enough? Then let us find whether there is a list somewhere that these people are going by. Remember, we have talked over and over again about the fact that there needs to be, okay, so there was a social register. You say it is not reliable, fine. So where is the reliable register? Who is coming up with these reliable registers? Was the register, social register, used in Ogun State in distributing these palliatives? How much or how many grains of rice from that bag that you see is any member of the community going to get? I know so many questions to ask on this matter, but I guess it's back to the states now to be accountable to the people. Our job here is to, hold government accountable. And now we are coming up with this information. Now, can the state governments please verify to their people that they are doing what they want them to do, what they employed them to do? So, questions, Chamberlain.
Questions and a lot more questions, Ayo, a lot of which you have already raised. I mean, the very obvious ones are right there. And I think that those questions need to be answered. I'm just going to add that, this is a democracy.
Yeah.
We're not practicing a monarchy. And even if we were practicing a monarchy, I mean, we have been told that in times past, even chiefs within the courts of the king could actually tell the king some home truths. And they were said in a very, say it in a very respectful manner, but oftentimes the king gets the message. But this is not even a monarchy. This is a democracy. People should not be afraid to speak. And when people speak, they need to be heard. It needs to be shown that they have been listened to. Leaders are there to serve the people. It's not the other way around. The people don't serve the leaders. It's a sad thing that maybe as a result of where we're coming from and the past that we have had, many people think that when people get into leadership positions, those leaders need to be served. If your constituents, if leaders down the line are raising problems or raising the challenges that they're facing within that community, and I'm a little bothered. This is the second time we're seeing anything with the Ogun State government, being mentioned. The first we saw was a letter that was written from it's a local government chairman, I think, to an APC chieftain. That letter leaked. And then we saw the repercussions, and we saw people, some local government leaders saying, "Oh, we're not a part of that letter." Oh, people were bowing down and kneeling down and begging the governor. These are not the kinds of things that we should see in a democracy. Right now, we are in a situation where, as a result of the removal of fuel subsidy, not just state governments, the federal government has made provisions, sometimes as much as 5 billion naira to state governments to ensure that people who are going to be most affected as a result of this fuel subsidy removal are taken care of. State governments have been so empowered because the federal government believes they're closest to the people. And I want to imagine that they should know the number of people in their own jurisdiction, and one of the ways to do that is also to trickle it down through the local governments. Now, if this is what you're having, because we also hear that in some states, they're not just going with the local governments that have been designated within the Constitution. Lagos State is a prime example of that. They have LCDAs, what they call local council development areas, to make it even easier to administer, the people in that particular area. So you now have this man who, this gentleman who is raising objections as to what he has received, which means that something could have gone wrong down the line, or there was insufficient engagement as to what exactly was expected, or whatever the case is, really, it just means that this cannot be what was promised the people from 2 billion or 5 billion, depending what it is that the Ogun State government has had access to. So I think it behoves the governor to have an engagement, and a very candid engagement with the people of his state as to what the expectations should be, because I'm sure he's seen that this video has gone viral, what the expectations should be, and to actually humbly promise to serve the people. This should not be about isolating somebody and saying, "How dare you?" I want to believe that would not be the stance in this case. This will be about the reputation of the government of Ogun State at stake. And wherever else this is raised, I mean, this is Ogun State today. How many more states do we know that this kind of objections can be happening, but people do not have the courage to speak up? So wherever it is that this sort of objections are raised, I want to imagine that the state governors should not see it as a confrontation or as an affront on the leadership. And even if it is, it's a democracy. There must be a way to resolve this sort of matters in a way that is beneficial to all. These are the smallest units of government, and if it's about the government of the people, for the people, by the people, then an engagement is not avoidable. So I think over now to the government of Ogun State. This video is out there. They cannot pretend not to have seen it, and we look forward to what exactly their response will be. Chamberlain.
This is why sometimes some of those persons they appoint as legal aides never get to tell them the truth. Because when they want that to happen, they think that, oh, no, you're not here to serve my interests. They shield a lot of things away from them. I mean, we had the former Minister of Sports here last week, Mr. Dalonga. He did say something in this regard, that several times, in fact, he did say part of the reason why he didn't return was because, he was, according to him, he always spoke the truth, no matter what ox was God, and then the powers that be, the cabal, as he said, they didn't want him back because he was still candidate for their liking. Well, that was his account. So I don't know how you can verify those kind of things. But for this kind of matter, that's why we always talk about getting institutions to work, so that it's not just because in some states now, you read something that distributing rotten grains to the residents.
Which is a likelihood, because is there anybody who is actually checking the quality of the grains that are being given to residents? Don't forget that a lot of these grains will be procured via contracts.
Yeah.
And contractors are not exactly moved by scruples. They're moved by profit. If it's just for them to show some bags of rice, the question is, who is ensuring that what is inside those bags of rice is grains fit for human consumption? And these are the matters that should be tabled before the people.
Yeah.
I mean, and tabled before the government of the day as well.
And it's not far-fetched, because I don't know who didn't see the last time they were supposed to distribute palliatives to the people. They hoarded it. They put it in warehouses, in stores during COVID. And the people they got wind and they broke those warehouses. I think the whole country, if not the world, saw how just distribute noodles, they hoarded it, looking to make political gains out of noodles. So how much more this one? So, I mean, you know what historians say. You know what someone can do by what they've done before. That's why we're raising these kind of things. So if they want to prove the media or journalists wrong, let's see transparency. What templates are they using for all of these distributions? And we cannot emphasize local governments working, because if they work, I don't think we'll be talking about all of this. You should have seen a proper, well-laid-out structure and things happening. But anyways, we hope that these kind of persons who we're speaking of, I see some people accusing them of trying to make political gains, but we hope they will not be persecuted or stifled, as it may be. In some cases, that usually turns out like that. Let people speak. It's better they speak, you hear and address, than when they bottle it up and wait for a point, there's conflagration, and then you start calling people to go shoot at sight or quell them. I don't think we want that kind of scenario. All right, let's see how much of the dailies we can take a look at this morning. And we'll start with the Guardian newspaper this Monday morning. And you know how the Guardian likes to focus sometimes on the economy. And that's how they also continue with here today. Firms scale down production, opt for trade over Forex income concerns. So that is the big one on the front page of the Guardian here today. Disposable incomes, Forex challenges force manufacturers to adjust business models. And that's why when government is coming up with all of these measures, we'll wait to see what the Minister of Finance is working on, some sort of capital for private sector, because that sector seems to have been neglected over the years. So all of this talk about labor fighting for this and that, look, there are several key members of the organized private sector who have spoken up too, saying, look, they need to define these things properly. And where is Mr. Taiwo Idele, by the way? What's happened to his committee? Well, I haven't heard. Hasn't the president signed off on something yet? I guess it's something we'll wait and see, because, look, time is money. Time is spent. This is a biting hard. Inflation, financial derivatives did publish something about the forecast, it going higher. So all of these things, they have to win, because you can't actually plan properly. Because you plan today, tomorrow is wiped out by inflation. Now you just wonder, where do you go from here? There has to be some sort of stability at some point. Well, I'll let you check out the rest. That's Guardian this morning.
Well, I'm going to be looking at Abuja Inquirer. It seems an interview, I don't want to say with the landlord of Abuja. But hey, if that's the title, then that's the title, yeah? Why I accepted to work for APC, that's attributed to Wike. I have president's mandate to step on toes. That's the lead headline they have since it's been called from an interview they did with him. You also have a number of stories even right there on the FCT. Wike sets up JTF to end one chance in Abuja. This is really becoming a menace.
Oh, yes.
Don't forget that greatness. Olorun Femi was the latest victim, latest obvious victim who lost a life. And this was compounded by the fact that a hospital here in Abuja allegedly refused her treatment on account of wanting a police report.
Abuja has to work on the transport system.
Indeed.
For those, they have to have something.
Yeah. I mean, there is none, as a matter of fact. You're just left to your own devices, and that's not good enough. So this is JTF has now been set up to end that particular menace, to see what the modus operandi will be. But you also have this: illicit drugs district head bags 5-year jail term, fugitive barons arrested in Abuja, Lagos. Or the NDLEA certainly doing what they know how to do, and it's very commendable right there. FCTA to digitize operations, urge staff to embrace IT skills. Well,
and they should go do exams.
I think that goes without saying. That should go without saying. Yeah, this is the picture you see there. No, it's not Wiki. That's the minister who is right here in the FCT, or shall I say minister? Is that a governor as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, the governor of Kaduna State. Right there. So that picture may be trying to tell you a story. And of course, they also have this one. They have two. I'm going to take two more. No warning before next strike, Labour tells federal government. It looks like they're going to be taking the one that they have given you before as that warning. We only suspended the strike. We can resume without warning. That's what Labour is saying. In essence, page 15 is where you find details. And then you see right there, 1 million displaced in Gaza. That is according to the United Nations. A humanitarian crisis certainly brewing there. A really, really difficult picture, really difficult scenario to continue to look on. But that's how we leave it for the Abuja Inquirer.
What's stroking Ayo?
The Vanguard newspaper is...
Palliative, sure.
Well, it's something related, because I would expect that for what you have on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, the pensions and gratuities being owed should be palliatives to the beneficiaries, wouldn't you say? And look at that story, the lead story. 21 states owe 790 billion naira inherited pensions and gratuities. Details of that you will find on page 5 of the paper. Rivers, Benue states top list with 119 billion, 100 billion. Southwest, Niger Delta regions have 256 billion and 225 billion, respectively. And what we're doing to offset arrears, that's according to states. The details of what's being done, you will find on page 5 of the paper this morning. Now, this other one, right under the picture, foreign investments in manufacturing up 88% to $861 million. Is that to do with the CBN announcing limitlessness of, well, that announcement concerning those banned items? You find the details on page 19. That's the Vanguard newspaper this morning.
Nigerian Tribune. Bayelsa, Kogi, Imo elections. PDP, LP disagree with APC over INEC's assurance. It was always going to be a thing. And so now it's here. Look at the writers. Opposition parties raise doubts over e-transmission of results. We are still traumatized by February poll experience, Labour Party. Trust INEC at your peril, Okori Abga warned candidates. We won't accept results declaration not electronically transmitted, ascribed to PDP. INEC will do what it promised, APC. So, there you go. Look, the thing about all of this is, yes, parties may be aggrieved, parties may not be trusting, parties may have concerns, granted. That can happen in a system. Even if they did a little better than this, that can always happen. But one thing that shouldn't happen is parties not properly educating their people to go out there and vote. Because if you're prone to protest and you don't participate, and elections happen, and the people who you don't want to, who you would have voted for win the elections, and they go to court and remain there, they'll be there for the next 4 years, and it will affect your lives, your decisions. That's granted. We've seen that happen before when the party abstained from local government elections and the rest, you know what they say, it's history. So if you want to make any change whatsoever, go participate. Yes, We can just draw the line between anger and doing the right things, because it will help, in the manner of speaking. Oh, look at this. CSU, that's at the bottom strip. Tinubu gives reasons why Supreme Court can't accept Atiku's fresh evidence. At the bottom strip right there. So, and then Forex restrictions removal on 43 items. Policy change will promote orderliness, professional conduct. Ascribe to LCCI. We'll wait and see. We will see. That's Tribune this morning.
Well, Daily Trust has this. Boko Haram attacks escalate in Borno. That's a lead story. 252 persons killed in August. That's according to a report. Attacks heightened after repentant terrorists returned to bush. That's according to the Emir of Goza. DHQ plans review of operations. So focusing on the security situation in the northeast of the country. Things had calmed down somewhat, or calmed down a great deal, as a matter of fact, but doesn't look like that peace has been maintained right now, if we're to go by the report on the front page of Daily Trust newspapers. Take a look at this. Ondo PDP, APC bicker over Akeredolu's whereabouts. Not again. Nigeria's exports, 146.1 billion naira worth of raw cashew, in 6 months. You know, when I heard a particular company was now into the production of cashew nuts, I knew that, there has to be something to this. I mean, the agri sector is always a viable sector.
Yeah, contribute largely to our GDP.
Yes, I think that many more companies should be looking in that particular area. I heard Julius Berger was diversifying into the export of cashew nuts. Yes, you heard right. Wow. Maybe that has got something to do with how much exports now we're saying of raw cashew nut, of raw cashew in
days.
6 months. Gaza invasion could lead to genocide. That's according to the Arab League and the African Union. Story is right there on the front.
Founder's Voice.
Yeah. And take a look at this. Liberia's elections. ECOWAS warns against premature declarations of victory. That story is right there. Page 18 is where we're seeing the story. You bet I'm certainly interested in that particular headline. Let's leave it there for Daily Trust.
Some interesting stories on the front page of the Leadership newspaper this morning, and the lead is no less concerning. Look at it. Election petitions. Appeal court transfers cases to Abuja, Lagos. Now, what does that mean? Look at the writer. APC, PDP, LP protest interference. Cases in 19 northern states taken to FCT. Appeals in 17 southern states moved to Lagos. That's the lead of the story, of the front page of the paper this morning. Now look right under the lead, the nameplate. Excuse me. Cardoso may abandon anchor borrowers, e-naira, currency redesign. How interesting is that? Oh, by the way, I think that's the lead story should be explored further. Hopefully we'll be able to take that on this morning as well. But that economic story, what does that mean? What's the implication? Does that mean that all the people who have received anchor borrowers' money don't have to return it? Or, well, dear Mr. Cardoso, kindly provide some background. Maybe the details you'll find on page 7 of the Leadership newspaper this morning. And right above the major story, $500 million World Bank loan. Meter manufacturers move to stop TCN. What does that mean? You find the details on page 21 of the Leadership newspaper. And there's some clarification coming from NEMA about flood alert. NEMA clarifies flood alert, insists data shows possible flooding. Well, you'll find the details of that on the inside pages this morning of the paper. That's the Leadership newspaper today.
Okay, we got Daily Independent as well. Return to manage float's way out of Naira crisis, ascribed to experts. So we're also going to be asking some of those experts this morning to just break this down for people to understand this policy of the CBN. And now talking about return to manage float's way out of Naira crisis. So there appears to be some sort of back and forth on this one. So they'll talk to us on this one. And then you also see analysts thumb down AMCON's 10 years in aviation. And so you get to see some riders as well. Query interventions in Arig Air, aero contractors. And then one's financial books of 2 airlines in public. So several questions being asked of them. That will be Daily Independent this morning.
Look at the front page of the Business Day newspaper. And what do you have on its front page? It's, of course, talking money. Nigeria's power dream stuck 10 years after privatization. This is definitely something very, very concerning. We've been talking about this back and forth over the years. What is wrong with the all of the conversation we've had, the laws that govern the privatization and all those things? And someone needs to come out and tell Nigerians something. Otherwise, this isn't going right. Or is it? Right at the bottom of the page, banks lending saw 50% in half one despite interest rates hike. 11 banks at least, that's what you have right there as part of the story that continues on page 31. World Food Day. Farmers suffer water shortages despite 264 dams. Now, who do we call here now? Do we call the Minister of Agriculture? Or do we call the Minister of Water Resources? Who exactly do we call in on this one? Farmers are suffering water shortages. Not something good, especially in the light of what the president, of the declaration of the president about an emergency in food production in Nigeria. Find the details of that on page 27. And above that story, Nigeria not in debt distress must chase revenues, but must chase revenues. That's according to the IMF. Nigeria not in a debt crisis, but has to chase revenue. That's according to the IMF. What does that mean? You find the details on the inside pages. Switch very quickly to the Nigerian News Direct. Nigerian News Direct this morning is also talking about money. FGI's $1.5 billion World Bank loan to finance budget deficit. That's on page 21. As Minister pledges to respect CBN autonomy, ways and means borrowing limits. You find the details of that. Continue on the inside pages of the paper this morning. And at the bottom of the page, you find FG launches 3 MTT program, target technical training of 30,000 Nigerians in 3 months. And that picture of, that story with the picture of the Minister of the FCTA directors hail Tinubu Wike over creation of Civil Service Commission. Let's just hope that it indeed gets the traction and the function that it requires. And very quickly, look at the Daily Times newspaper. This is hopefully some enlightenment for some who are looking at the Japa syndrome. Look at it. Japa, how we worked outside Nigeria, returned penniless. What does that mean? And look at this one, the riders. I'll never go back. Any job in Nigeria, better. We escaped death by whiskers. I returned with illness, not money. Oh, God. And then there's a quote right under it. I did not stay long because what I heard was far from truth. I traveled out of ignorance. I was told that life is simple there, but what I saw is the opposite. Several other stories right there on the front page, but that particular story continues on the inside pages. That's the lead of the Daily Times, as well as a look at some of the dailies this morning. We're back to take on the issues. Do stay with us.
welcome back. Yes, indeed. So we'll be discussing this announcement that was made by the CBN lifting Forex restriction, which was placed on importation of 43 items, I think sometime in 2015, June, thereabouts. So we've got two gentlemen joining us to weigh in on the matter. Well, Aliyu Audu, Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs. Last time he was there, he wasn't that one. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today.
Thank you. Good morning.
Okay, we also do have Paul Alaje, who is the Chief Economist, SPM Professionals. Good morning, Mr. Alaje. Good to see you. I hope you're having your good rest.
Good morning.
Even though we had to drag you out this morning somehow.
Good morning, and thank you so very much for having me.
Okay, so Mr. Alaje, let me start with you. You know, several people will be looking to this, wondering how do they interpret it? What do they make of this? What does it mean for their businesses? You know, is it part of the policy flip-flop? So of course, some will be a little confused about some of these things. So you've seen all of these things and, of course, internalized it time and again. Talk to us about this. So what is it with this lifting of importation of restriction? I beg your pardon. This decision now taken by the CBN anyways on Friday.
Okay, so the decision taken by the central bank is to the effect that 43 items that were previously banned from accessing FX from the central bank can now do so. What are these items? It includes cement, rice, iron steel, toothpick, and many other items that central bank in 2015, with the support of the, the Ministry of Finance and the Continuity Minister of the Economy, they agreed that these items should not necessarily have access to FX. Yes, they can be imported, but they need to foot their FX from another source. That was the reason why this was initiated. And it also gave that support to local, in a way, it will serve as means of providing support to local producers who may want to go into rice production because it is expected that importation will be relatively more expensive if they cannot get FX at official window. When that policy was made, several international organizations, including IMF, World Bank, and World Trade Organization, have since had their concerns. I think their recent concern was that those 43 items may be fueling high demand in the parallel markets. And I think, to my mind, is one of the reasons why the central bank felt it could be important to allow all these items, including importation of toothpick, importation of rice, importation of a number of other things, may now come to the official window, either on the FMBQ platform or whatever platform government may think is important for them to have their transaction. So this is exactly what the matter is. But you know, when we make economic decisions, we must be sure, decide what would be the implication. It's not just to make the policy that matters. The implication of this policy is what we need to really consider. So what does it mean when we say that we want to reduce the backlog? Because central bank has promised it's going to reduce the backlog of those that have been wanting to get FX. So what's the implication? I look at what we have in our foreign reserve. I think it's highly insufficient. And perhaps this is the reason, although this is not in public domain, why government says it wants to have more loans in recent time. And when you check the loan government have been talking about, their foreign loans, they have implication. When government collect foreign loans, they are going to have the money go directly into our foreign reserve and provide the naira equivalent. So the foreign reserve is expected to grow. To some organization reporting, some have reported $400 million, some have reported $1.5 million, whichever be the case. When this money comes, it goes to the foreign reserve. So you see some boost in our foreign reserve so that government can support. But what is this downside to this policy? The downside, unfortunately, is going to be really very tremendous on the economy. One is that you are going to fuel the demand side. The real problem we have with FX today has nothing to do with demand. It has everything to do with supply. Yes, I understand we have some Nigerians who don't mean well for the country, who continue to speculate against the currency, and they have their own argument. The argument is that we continue to work, but the value of our money may reduce per time, partly because of government policy, partly because Naira gets weakened, partly because of, you see Nigerians are now opt for going to parallel markets to buy FX to keep their money and anytime they need the money, they go back. This is what is happening in Nigeria today. So if we now say that the solution to this is to allow 43 items to now come, whether it's a parallel market or it's at official window, if you look at the implication for industry, then it's going to have negative impact on industry, because where I am now, to borrow money, you only need to pay 3 to 4%, not per month, per annum. How can a Nigerian business person compete with someone in this part of the world if he collects loan at 3% to 4% without, he may not necessarily need to bring 3 or 4 as is always requested in Nigeria. So how will such business compete with Nigeria, where you need to get 30% of the same, and you want to do the same business? So it is easier for someone abroad to produce and come to Nigeria, even when we think that we are going to charge them some import duties and so on and so forth. They will still be at competitive edge, when you compare them to Nigeria. So the downside of these policies is that it's going to fuel demand. The implication is that Naira may be worse off. In the short run, you see speculators who are not really sure of what the decision may be. You might see some seizure or some delay, or you can see the figure go flat. But when people know that we have not really solved the supply side problem, then you might see exchange rate worse off. In the medium term, even in the short term, you might see it worse off. So what we need to do this moment today is to solve our supply side problem. It is the real issue. And that is what I think we need to do as a matter of urgency.
While I cannot fault your conclusions on that, you've also given an insight into what you think could be happening with our Forex crisis problems. Well, one of the simple things we're told about money when, children or students are taught about money is that it's a store of value. Currency is supposed to be a store of value. So if Nigerians are not having confidence in their Naira to be able to store the value that they have earned, that is a major problem. But let me take you up on the 43 items, because part of what we were told at the time when the CBN restricted Forex access to these items was that a lot of them could be locally produced, and that there were already, companies around which were trying in that regard to produce some of these things. And in any case, it was ridiculous. I mean, how can a country not be able to produce toothpicks, for instance, with all the bamboo that we have in our West African region? So for you, what exactly has been the problem? Because initially, according to to our data analyst yesterday, the CBN did come out to say that Forex restriction was having the desired effect on production. Now, many years down the line, we're being told that it looks like opposite has been the case. So for you, if you are aware of what is happening, if production really hasn't taken place on these 43 items which were restricted, what do you think could be responsible for it?
Thank you once again. The real challenge we have here is that we want to eat our cake and have it. We want to sandwich growth and development. We believe that we can jump from a phase of primary to secondary. We don't want to go through the important phase that the rest of the world have passed through. When you look at our GDP component, you see agriculture. Then when it comes to agriculture, it's been flat over the years. It's maintained the same position over the years. Then you see service. Service has been growing steadily. If service is growing and agriculture is flat, then the third component must suffer it. What is the third component? Production and manufacturing. Nigeria has refused to produce. And for most countries, as they are growing in population, it is better for their production and manufacturing component to grow with them. In the case of Nigeria, that is not the case. As our population is growing, our production and manufacturing is falling. What does that mean? Somebody must produce for us. And guess what? Who produces for you will be your master. Around the world, that is why we depend on the rest of the world. And the way economics captures it, for those
Oh, sadly, we've lost his audio there. Well, Mr.
I think I muted it. Maybe we'll check him out.
Okay, well, Mr. Alaji, if you can hear us, we'll have to double-check your audio, or just double-check to be sure that you're not muted.
Hello?
Okay, yes, we lost you. You're talking about production and how production has been deepened, and you know, people will be our masters if our production doesn't go up.
Yes, so when you look at country's population, the population of Nigeria is between 2.6 to 3%. But when you see the decline in our production, manufacturing, and processes is declining. So central bank at that time came with a policy to say, let us support local manufacturer. Let's bring out several policies, which includes if you employ up to 100 employees, central bank will give you some special provision. Today, I see those policies as being cancelled. Why? Because the components of production, which only government is responsible for, yes, government may partner with private sector, is not happening. And what is that? Government must guarantee adequate energy, power supply for production to happen. I am not saying government must own energy 100%, but when you look at the energy or electricity issues in Nigeria, we have generation, we have transmission, and we also have distribution. We have seen government privatize partly generation, privatize partly distribution, but what happens to transmission today? I was on your show with you there, and we all looked at how Nigeria transmission company packed up in 2022 12 times. A dozen times it packed up. This year alone, it has packed up 5 times. And we are talking of developers. You see, if you don't produce, if you don't manufacture, and you don't process, the truth is that such country, any country that finds itself in such position, will remain crude, will remain beneath. And the good news is that Nigeria has a new president, and I see that this president needs to depart from the way of the previous president. And what is the way the president must embrace? The way of manufacturing, the way of processing, and this is what all the major ministers that has to do with the economy must have conversation about. We cannot continue to postpone the evil day. All the countries in the world we want to go, one of the things that we consider unconsciously in our mind is how regular is electricity, how affordable is energy. If we don't solve this problem, I am sorry, it's going to be a big challenge. This is the challenge why all of those things central bank mentioned in 2015 and 2016 and 17 mentioned that they started to see the result because those organizations could use diesel to produce. Today, 2021 December, the cost of diesel was approximately 290 naira. Today in Abuja, the cost of diesel is between 950 to 1,100. Now, if you have done a business plan and you have collected facility at 26 to 30% per annum, that is it in a commercial bank. In a microfinance bank, between 40% to 72% in Nigeria. How do you intend to compete? And you don't want to produce, there are not enough energy. Again, you have to deal with human resources whose intention, some of the time, not all the time, some of the time is how they said, if you work with people, you must make something for yourself by the side. And I'm not saying doing part-time job, but even pilfering in an organization, and we see this a lot in manufacturing sector. So the truth is, Nigerian government, we need to rethink production. We need to rethink manufacturing. If we don't do it, there is no future for us. I give you an example. Go to Germany. What is the focus? It's not farms, it's manufacturing, it's technology. Go to America. What is the concern? What is the direction of government? It's also manufacturing technology. If you go to Russia, Russia is at war today, but look at what is happening to Russia economy. In spite of all the restriction coming from America, it is still technology and manufacturing. Brazil, technology and manufacturing. Nigeria, the largest economy in another continent called Africa. Our focus remains on agriculture, and we hope that our banks will suddenly take us out of the wood by the time the banks are declaring billions. But you need to check what the banks declared during COVID. They all have issues. Anytime there is economic quagmire induced by oil around the world, all Nigerian banks will fall sick. Therefore, our banking system is not really premised on what they should be. Their premise should be on SMEs and manufacturing. But for most of the Nigerian banks, it's on crude oil and some few multinationals. And that is why the strength of them is not as strong. I'm not saying any bank is at risk of going down. No, that's not what I mean. But I'm saying that the banks need to be premised on a strong manufacturing sector. That is the backbone of our economy. That is the future of our country. If we don't do it, I'm sorry, we may not get to that paradise we are all hoping to see someday.
Well, Mr. Audu, you have heard it's a very troubling but a very candid picture of what it is that we're currently going through. The picture is not pretty, where citizens do not have confidence in their country's currency, where it is difficult to produce or manufacture anything, and manufacturers, what did the Guardian say this morning? Manufacturers are, coming up with policies to protect whatever it is that they're doing, and, they're not scaling up. They know that right now, if they continue like this, they could be in trouble in that particular sector. For you, I do not know what you make of this CBN Forex market intervention. Do you really think that this could be a solution to, helping the Naira, or do you think that right now we're chasing shadows?
Good morning. I think it's the solution, or at least one of them. And I mean, if you look at the monetary policies and fiscal policies, he did say, I agree with all of the things he said. And but the challenge we currently have in production, isn't just on monetary policy, isn't just what have been brought about by these policies. He rightly said, production, energy is important, and we can't say that enough. And talked about, what's happening in transmission and the impact it has. And I think what he was trying to say about the commercial bank, which I totally agree, is the fact that they don't make enough impact in our economy, especially in the production sector, the small and medium enterprises. And I mean, if 2015, when this policy was introduced, there was a reason, basically to allow local manufacturers of these, products be able to come up and, gain footing and stand in the sector. But 8 years later, like you would expect, assessment of what has happened from, this restriction, and instead of getting the desired result of, either lowering our or improving the strength of the Naira, you see is weakened. Then the disparity between the official rate and the parallel market, good reason as at the time it was done. There are a lot of other issues that could have been responsible for why we haven't gotten the desired result, which the CBN is actually looking at as we speak. I mean, there's a lot of the new guys just took their offices, and they are assessing all of the projects, all of the processes, all of the policies, and see where they can make the changes. However, these items that have been excluded from assessing Forex were not banned from imports, meaning someone will import them. That someone will have to go to somewhere else to source the market. So if who says you can't get Forex from CBN at a lower rate and go to the market to sell it, where these people get it?
Was it happening?
No, I mean, round tripping, it's you can't write it off. You can't write that off. I might not have the data to show, but we know this is one of the reasons. I mean, what fuels what feeds the parallel market? There's shortage in supply. The CBN is working on a lot to boost that. But if you deliberately allow a player, it seems unfair that a segment of the economy, which is not illegal, is not allowed access to, the formal window where they can access Forex. What that does is you push them and you create a permanent segment. And what this does is, by the time they bring in this product, because they get to get this Forex at high rate, it increases the price of the product coming into the country. There are a lot of items we can look at.
Do you think that it ought to have the items should have been restricted in totality from importation? Do you think that is something that we should pursue to force production of those things here?
I do not think so, and this is because we need to be competitive. We shouldn't have our productive sector pampered. I mean, there are areas we can strengthen them. There are interventions that the government, the CBN, can do to help them more competitive. But I mean, we know what it is that the moment a particular sector is pampered. Let's look at 8 years analysis of what has happened when these items were taken off the list. Okay. How well have they performed?
Are we going to break?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll be answering that question when we come back from this break. Please stay with us.
Lipton's flavorful and balanced taste, we pick fine quality tea leaves from selected tea gardens around the world to give you Lipton Yellow Label's flavorful and balanced taste in every sip.
Southwood. Fine furnishings for your home and office. Southwood is a Nigerian company dedicated to improving the quality of workplaces and homes. Our space planning and craftsmanship allows you to create a highly customized and comfortable office environment for hardworking and busy executives. Southwood solutions are perfect for today's flexible work cultures. Teamwork, transparency, collaboration. A well-designed and comfortable work environment is proven to increase productivity and morale. Our elegant home furnishings provide the ultimate in comfort and quality. Southwood, furnishings that shape your world. Visit us today at southwoodnigeria.com. Email us at furniture@southwoodnigeria.com or call 0700-FURNITURE.
The National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, welcomes broadcasters, content creators, tech experts, exhibitors, and investors from Nigeria and all over to the 13th edition of Africast. Africast is the destination event where local and global industry players experience the latest innovative technologies, services, products, and markets. Participants will experience 3 days of world-class exposition showcasing the very best in creativity, innovation, and technological advancement in the broadcast industry. Theme: broadcast content, synergy, finance, and market. Date: Tuesday, 24th to Thursday, 26th October 2023. Venue: Marriott Hotel, Ikeja, Lagos. Time: 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily. Chief host: Honorable Minister of Information and National Orientation, Alhaji Mohammed Idris. Host: Balarabe Shehu Ilela, Director General. Announcer: Management. NBC, your right to quality broadcasting.
Hey, big papa. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you. Sit down. How you doing now? They can't pay. I bring your medicine. Thank you. Papa, we are Miko. Miko don't go work. Miko don't join oil business. Oil business? Yes, sir. Which company? Papa, Miko don't they follow them go cook oil? That's illegal. Small, yeah. No, it's a crime. That kind of business no good for Miko at all. It is illegal and very dangerous. What happened? Papa, na fire for where we dey cook oil. Who does your stuff from nowhere?
My country people, palava we bunker an illegal refinery dey cause for the community. E too plenty. Our pikin dem we get better future don dey peme. On top, we dey carry our own hand, spoil we land and water. Abegi, no follow the do or sponsor this kind of business. Now Pipeline Infrastructure Nigeria Limited and NNPCL say make we tell you now.
Confidence that only comes from knowing you are fully sorted, to show up for you just when you need a hand, and when retirement comes with all its worries and storms, to ensure we will stand by you and give you the coverage that you deserve. Make the perfect choice. Choose PAL Pensions today.
PAL Pensions, your pal for life.
When you sweat, you lose ions too. Reach for Pocari Sweat, similar to your body fluid. It is easily absorbed and rehydrates you faster. Replenish your ions with Pocari Sweat Ion Supply Drink.
Well, thank you for staying with us. Well, you were making a point the other time before we went on break, essay.
All right. So, like I was saying, the essence of this is to ensure that we have a standard market. The disparity between the formal window and the parallel market needs to be closed up, and we need to have a place where the prices of forex is strictly determined by the what's it called, the principle of the principle of willing buyer, willing seller, subjected to the the forces of demand and supply in the market. For as long as we keep pushing importers of this to, I mean, we are encouraging of course, the CBN will be encouraging the existence of parallel market. If the very aim of what they are trying to do is to ensure we have a unified forex market status, pushing people to a market which you don't want to exist only shows that you're not interested in achieving what you set out to achieve in the first place.
Okay.
So while we agree that there's insufficient in terms of availability of foreign exchange for these manufacturers of this product, the CBN has talked about boosting that, ways to boost that in their own way. But we must not deliberately create a situation where we encourage legitimate importers of certain products that are not banned to go sourcing funds everywhere. Let's know what our problems are. We have insufficient supply of forex, and let's deal with it. But for as long as you're solving a problem internally and you're creating you're increasing the problem outside, we will never get anything done.
Okay. Well, Mr. Laje, let me come to you, briefly on that. I mean, you've listened to Mr. Audu speak there, but the statement from the CBN puts it this way. How does this benefit local production in the Q&A they put out? Local production will benefit from cheaper imported inputs, and consumers will benefit from cheaper retail products. The policy is suitable for a unified forex market and positive as well for inflation. Do you agree?
Okay, so let me take example of toothpick. What do I need to import for toothpick? For me to make toothpick, maybe the equipment. If I must produce, I'm not going to import energy. It's already available to me here. And if I'm going to use diesel, already it's not part of the things that is banned. So I don't completely agree with that. For steel, for metal steel, maybe we can do that. But what happens to the investment of those that are already in Nigeria? How will they survive for those that have already invested heavily in that market? The challenge I have with the policy is that the central bank and perhaps the immigration did not specify that is only raw material you can bring in. I give you an example of what President Buhari administration really trended alongside the central bank under Governor Emefiele. What they mentioned is that Nigeria has, in fact, reached rice production. They've reached sufficiency in rice production. So if you are saying that we are opening up to the markets, are we saying that we want people to bring in paddy? Because what is fueling high price in rice today is high cost of paddy. Paddy rice is the raw material miller used to mill and that made available in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, most of these paddy rice were coming into Nigeria until the coup happened in the neighboring Niger Republic. When the coup happened in the neighboring Niger Republic, Nigeria and Niger have their concerns, of course, diplomatic issues. And you see scarcity. Again, we have seen that it also happened at a time where it was not harvest season. Even at this harvest season, the price is far higher than what it was.
Well, Mr. Laje, just a second. I just wanted you to speak directly to that, frequently asked question that the CBN put out. They said that local production will benefit from cheaper imported inputs and consumers will benefit from cheaper retail products. Do you agree that that will happen?
I don't agree that will happen. Because when you say we are importing we are having importation of lower value, maybe lower exchange rate, I really don't agree that will happen.
Okay.
Because when you say you have opened up, now this is the challenge. When you say you have opened up for people to bring, you cannot stop people who are bringing finished products into Nigeria. You cannot stop them.
Okay.
So here is the challenge. When people were using the parallel market to fund, it became relatively more competitive for local producers. So it's a huge challenge. And it's not just in the area of iron, steel, toothpick, and so on and so forth. There are other products, which include tomato.
More than 43 items, actually, including tomato paste, just as you said. But there is another question that I want to put to you very quickly, and I'd like you to answer them as shortly as you can. Another one of those, a follow-up to how does this benefit local production from the CBN is, it is expected that employment generation will be boosted as closed factories will reopen and price stability will benefit the economy as well as the standards of living in general. Do you see that happening?
Okay, so this is a sufficient condition in economics. It is based on the first premise that if the importer brings in a cheaper rate, then this will happen. So if the first did not happen, if the first is not happening, then you can't see the second happening. Okay. So my position will be remaining because I'm not sure the first will happen. Therefore, I don't think the second will happen.
Now, Mr. Laje, one last one from me to you. Do you think Nigeria's economy, as it currently is positioned to promote production, which you and a number of other economists have been championing? Do you think our economy right now is positioned or engineered for production? If it is, tell us what you think. If it is not, what do we need to do to make Nigeria's economy a producing and not just a consuming one?
Okay, as we speak, Nigeria's economy is not positioned to promote production. And what are the things? Why is Nigeria's economy not positioned? Because the ingredients and fundamentals for production, they are not in place as we speak today. What must we do to make Nigeria's economy to be focused on production, to be focused on manufacturing? There are quite a number of them. There are a lot of them. But I will mention a few ones. And of course, I've mentioned the issue of power, energy, diesel, and so on and so forth. One thing we need to do very quickly is to make sure we have our local refinery working, which is very important. Nigerian government, we need to speak with Nigerian banks. The interest rate that is currently being charged is absurd. It's not realistic. It's not going to take us anywhere. So I don't know how government will partner with the central bank in this regard. We partner with commercial banks. It will be a good place for us to see a major review in interest rate. Central bank will achieve more employment goals if rates, and I talk about NPR, I also talk about lending rate by the banks. If the rates are better, then you are going to see more expansion in employment markets. Unlike when you say you bring some commodity that have potential of stimulating demand side, the central bank will be in more troubles in the coming period. And it's a matter of time. In the next 2 to 3 months, let's have this conversation again and look at what the exchange rate is saying. At both official window and parallel market, have we had improvement or not? I believe in the next 90 days to 100 days, we can review this conversation. And this is what, of course, we have had time and again. So that said, the other one is, why are we having issues with production and manufacturing? Know-how. I believe we have a lot of Nigeria that have capacity in terms of production, in terms of helping Nigeria to come to the other side, in terms of becoming a producing nation. But we also need to know how many Nigerians actually have the knowledge in terms of production. So we need to revive our technical schools. Emphasis on education today is on university first, then polytechnic. So whatever is happening to teachers or whatever is happening to those with technical school knowledge is not what Nigeria promotes. So we must change. China did not promote. It's very rare for you to hear about Chinese university. But you hear about how technically Chinese people are and Indians. But that is not the case for Nigeria. We must understand we have the largest population in Africa today. And by 2050, we will become the third largest economy. We are not preparing that third largest population in the world. So we need to promote technical education. And I say this to those in Ministry of Education. The earlier we revive those technical schools from states to local government and also to federal government, the better for us. So if you have your energy correctly, you have your bank financing, you have your people, which is important, then government can promote policy. And I tell you one of the policies I think President Tinubu will promote. We all use mobile phone. Can we say that government wants to partner with a mobile phone company? I see a lot of them in Nigeria, but one that would say, I want to assemble all my phones in Nigeria and see how jobs will be created. Or television. Many people are watching us in their homes today. Perhaps most of the TV we are using in Nigeria today are imported. Can President Bola Ahmed Tinubu say that we want to partner with any of these companies that we assemble, starting with assembly in Nigeria, and see how our brother from Sokoto to Owerri, from Lagos to Maiduguri to Calabar, television by themselves in a matter of years. This is how countries become manufacturers. Our country
All right, Mr. Ladi, we lost you there, but you made very interesting points. And as you wind down now, Mr. Audu, listen to him there. It's pretty clear what, if we do some of those things there, how we will, of course, move forward. And then he also just suggests that, yes, the president did declare a state of emergency on food security some time ago, but how we're fared with that remains to be seen. Shouldn't he then? Because you spoke about prices. This would be good for unifying the forex market on the one hand, and the prices may become cheaper. I'm not sure how that is going to work, because if they were getting the forex at what, 440 something, 44 something or thereabout, and then you have to push them to the parallel market where it's now over 700, isn't that going to reflect on their goods and services? Of course it will. And then moving forward now, do you have an idea what to expect from the president in terms of, shouldn't we be talking about declaring a state of emergency on production and then put requisite plans in place? Take us there.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he talked about a whole lot of that during the campaign, and all of the policies so far have shown that that's where we are headed. And
anything on power? We haven't heard anything yet.
No, of course. One of the first things he did was the electricity bill. Yeah, that's the most important part. You see,
just a bill.
Yes, the programs that will support the policies will be out. Then the projects that will bring this to bear, where it actually have this impact that it ought to have in our manufacturing, in our production, even in the general standard of living of the people, will come in there. But one of the things affecting inflation right now isn't just about the price, the high cost of bringing this thing. Is the fact that the supply it's affected. I mean,
because we're not producing.
Good. So while the pressure is mounting on the ordinary consumer, one way to look at it is to ensure that there is competition in the market. All right. So that if the production side has different angles, there are different angles to that. But in terms of the impact on the ordinary citizen, the price of this product, the availability of, and the quality of, if we don't expose our local manufacturing and local production to international quality competition, we end up, if they can produce enough, then good quality enough, then we can start thinking of exporting them, then start earning forex.
Well, you know what they say, you can't put something on nothing. We're waiting to see what will the government do about, number one, production. What will they do about power, for instance? These are steps that people need to see. What will they do about interest rates? As he said, 20-something% interest rate, how will companies survive? Inflation figures, double digit, how will they cope? So it's a job of work, and we're waiting to see the steps that they will take in that regard to get us where we need to be. We have to thank you for coming on, Aliyu Audu, Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs. We also need to thank Mr. Paul Alaje, who is an economist and also the Chief Economist for SPM Professionals. Thank you both for very interesting perspectives here this morning.
Thank you so very much for having me.
So we will be back in a moment, and we'll be going over from Lagos. Don't go away.
Southwood. Fine furnishings for your home and office. Southwood is a Nigerian company dedicated to improving the quality of workplaces and homes. Our space planning and craftsmanship allows you to create a highly customized and comfortable office environment for hardworking and busy executives. Southwood solutions are perfect for today's flexible work cultures. Teamwork, transparency, collaboration. A well-designed and comfortable work environment is proven to increase productivity and morale. Our elegant home furnishings provide the ultimate in comfort and quality. Southwood, furnishings that shape your world. Visit us today at southwoodnigeria.com. Email us at furniture@southwoodnigeria.com or call 0700-FURNITURE.
Discover Lipton's flavorful and balanced taste. We pick fine quality tea leaves from selected tea gardens around the world. 18 yellow labels, flavorful and balanced tasting every sip.
Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser. Or download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from their respective stores. You can also watch us via your smart TV platforms on Apple TV, Android TV, Fire TV, and Roku. Channels Television, ubiquitous.
Thank you for staying with us. Last week, the Nigerian Army Special Court, led by its president, Major General James Yam, convicted a former group managing director of Nigerian Army Properties Limited, Major General Umaru Mohammed, to 7 years imprisonment. He was found guilty of 14 out of 18 count charges brought against him. The court also ordered that the convicted senior officer should refund $2.17 million and 1.06 billion naira, the amount of monies he was said to have stolen, back to the coffers of the company. Now, having defended several officers and court-martial, let's have a fair idea of how this happened from Mr. Femi Falana, who is the senior advocate of Nigeria, joins us here in the studio. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Let me first of all get your initial reaction to this particular case.
Well, I had followed the case, and I was quite pleased with the turnout of events. I mean, the conclusion, the judgment, I think is very sound, and it's going to be difficult, quite difficult to set it aside. The cause, it wasn't really denied that these offenses took place. I think at a stage, what the general did say, the defendant, was that he wasn't acting alone. And I do hope that aspect of his defense will be, considered and followed up by the authorities. He indicted a particular former chief of army staff, and that most of the times he was taking instructions from him. So that cannot be swept under the carpet. But in terms of the quality of the judgment, I want to believe that General Court Martial did very well.
So when you say it will be difficult to be set aside, are you anticipating an appeal of sorts?
Oh, for sure. I mean, at that level, it's likely to file an appeal. It's likely to have an appeal at the Court of Appeal and up to the Supreme Court.
Because, the question I was going to ask was whether or not that was final.
No, it's not final.
That's the military,
It's a military court. You either have the General Court Martial or the Special Court Martial. Okay. And after they have delivered their judgment, the convicts or convicted army officer or soldier has the right under the Constitution to approach the Court of Appeal. And if he's not satisfied with the decision of the Court of Appeal, he also will have to go to the Supreme Court.
Mr. Falana, a number of people will be wondering how frequently such things happen, particularly in the army.
Well, it happens from time to time. Serving military officers who violate or contravene the provisions of the Armed Forces Act are usually charged. They are investigated, and if indicted, they are arraigned. It is because of the nature of this case that has attracted public attention. When you talk about corruption or criminal diversion of public funds, people, wonder, where this is coming from. And now that the question of the war against corruption, hasn't quite taken shape under this regime. So people are wondering what is going on, But the other one, I think for me, what has happened is a lesson for our courts, our lawyers and judges. When you are charged before a military court, the lawyers and the defendants are not allowed to engage in dilatory tactics. For instance, no bail, no application for bail, no interlocutory appeals or stay of proceedings, So once the panel is constituted, it's almost day by day. To have an adjournment, the reason must be very, very strong and convincing, So for me, I think it's a very good development that you have this type of a judicial system that works. Vis-a-vis the civil court that have been hijacked by the rich and their lawyers. When it comes to trial for corruption, money laundering, and related offenses.
I was thinking that such a case should have actually, gone to the as you said, the corruption, anti-corruption agencies, such as the EFCC, being a financial crime.
I've always advised against that, personally, because once you are subject to service law, right? All offenses committed that can be located within the ambit of the law will have to be tried by a military court. You have to be investigated by the military police and not by the EFCC. When they do that, including those who were indicted for engaging in criminal diversion of huge sums of money, earmarked for arms procurement, I was opposed to their trial before regular courts because these are war crimes. Even if you have retired, once you commit a war-related crime, mutiny or desertion, you can be brought back and tried. But once, I think it's a matter of class interest. I think the idea of sending them to the EFCC and the ICPC has to do with class solidarity. We don't want these people convicted by our own courts. We want them in the regular courts, where the rich have hijacked the system. And that's what is going on. Well, but I hope this will lead to a review of the trial of indicted military officers.
Well, it's interesting that you talked about, the fact that it's a special court and consequently it should get its fair share of its specialty. But it's also interesting that the court-martial was supposed to involve about 14 officers and 9 soldiers. How come it's only just one person that we seem to be hearing more of at this time? Also, in your response, add to the fact that, you said one person was also indicted. So what happens in that case?
I'm convinced that all those who have been indicted will be tried. That is the nature of military law. All those who are indicted, but there is a powerful, former service chief whose case will have to be taken up by the society. Because some of these guys are more powerful than, the system. So I expect the anti-graft, private anti-graft bodies to also insist that justice be done fully, without any...
I'll come back to that in a moment. But how about the other people that were court-martialed along with this general?
I guess their own cases might still be going on.
Okay. But to the issue that you mentioned the other time, you said earlier in your response that when a soldier, even if the person has retired, the person can be brought back to court-martial.
Yeah, depending on the nature of the case.
Depending on the nature of the case. Yeah. But if this man, as you said, the general has indicted, a retired fellow, so how come that person will not be taken to a regular court as opposed to a court-martial?
No, it depends, because we think if The retired general left within 3 years. It can be brought back. Okay. But apparently from the nature of the charges, it has nothing to do with mutiny or a war crime. So it will have to be tried in a regular court. Okay.
Now, to the issue of the EFCC that we talked about the other time, of course, you are not unaware that a new head has since gone in there and a number of issues are coming up on that one. But I want to still go back to the issue, first of all, of being indicted and being the cases going through the EFCC, which is an anti-corruption agency, being a financial crime. Do you see a situation where these indicted officers that you talked about could be investigated by the EFCC or their cases transferred to the EFCC?
No. I think there was a problem. There was a mistake. In exercise of his powers under the Recovery of Public Property Act, the former president, General Muhammadu Buhari, set up a presidential panel on arms procurement. And I think the panel concluded that about $2.1 billion was stolen by certain officers. The president then sent the report to the FCC, which for me was very wrong. He should have gone to the military police because the money alleged to have been stolen was meant for procurement of arms to prosecute, the war against terrorism. So those officers who were indicted can really be accused of impeding the war or, have engaged in mutiny, frustrating the war against terrorism, which had led to killing of thousands of people and destruction of public property. So the government was wrong to have sent the report to the EFCC. In fact, there was even an incident, I think about 4 years ago, where, I think after the 2019 elections, where some soldiers, 2015 and 2019, where army officers and soldiers were alleged to have participated in the rigging of elections. And I think the Chief of Army Staff said, we're going to send a report to the EFCC. What has the EFCC got to do with that? It is your duty to try them. But what the authorities did in the military was to retire those who were indicted. That's not enough. Because you must bring them to book under the Armed Forces Act. Because they committed offenses.
The question really is, just for clarity, yes, Mr. Falana, we're in a democracy. Yes. We're in a civil rule now.
Yes.
And these fellows committed these crimes,
yes,
as you have said.
Yes.
So a good number of people will be wondering, if we're in a civil rule, why use a military court?
No, we have the Armed Forces Act, and all over the world, under democratic government, you have military courts. And in order to ensure that nobody complains of having suffered injustice, once the military panels or the military courts have taken their decisions, you have the right to appeal to normal civilian courts of appeal. What we are doing now at the level of the Commonwealth, experts have been assembled, I think, in the first week of November, to look at the military laws in each of the Commonwealth member states to see how we can ensure that the tribunals are properly constituted, I think the military courts, and that, in fact, they are headed by civilian judges, so there will be full independence and impartiality, So some of these developments are being considered in line with democratic practice.
Okay. But you also said the other time that, you tend to praise the judgment of these military courts.
Yes.
And you said it's a lesson for civilian courts.
Yes.
Now, are you saying by any chance that this military court has been more detailed and more effective than the regular courts?
The point I'm making is that unlike regular courts, you cannot hijack the military court. You know what I mean is this. Since 2015, this country has ensured that criminal trials are speedily conducted, that you can't have adjournments of more than 7 days, and that you cannot stay proceedings of the courts. But what has happened? Yes, for a few months when the law first came out, everybody was happy. We can make progress now. But now, you know, the law is now as dead as dodo. We are back to square one. People walk, accused persons go to court to ask for permission to travel abroad and conduct their businesses. Granting bail is automatic, no matter the gravity of the offense or the amount involved. It's only the poor whose cases are speedily conducted in the magistrate and area courts. But for those who can hire the services of highly placed lawyers, you walk to the court leisurely to subject your case to unending adjournments. And because the courts are busy, you get away with it. So, and that is why, I know cases filed by the ICPC in the year 2001. I know cases filed by the FCC in 2007 that are still pending in our courts. It shouldn't be so.
You say these don't happen in... No.
No. You know, it's, like I said, it's day by day. For you to... Because they have assembled the judges from different military formations. They have to go back to their beats, you know. So you cannot go there and be asking for adjournment on flimsy grounds. Unless, for instance, the general who has just been jailed, said he was indisposed, you know. He was brought in a wheelchair. The authorities, you know, tried to confirm, you know, whether truly he was sick. And they said he was fit to stand trial. And of course, but in the regular courts, you know, the man, if you're a big man or a big woman, you even say you want to go abroad for treatment, and you'll be so allowed, you know. It's only the poor that do not have such
isn't that also
opportunities.
Isn't that what human rights lawyers also say?
No, that's not human rights. That's abuse of human rights. Because the law must be evenly applied in the country. And that is why the lady of justice is blindfolded. That means she sees nobody and she's ready to dispense justice without fear or favor. But that lady of justice has been raped in capitalist countries, in fact, kidnapped. You know. That's what goes on in a capitalist society.
Okay, now let's quickly talk about the EFCC. You've talked about the EFCC quite a few times. You know there's a new sheriff in town in EFCC now. And a good number of, some people are wondering whether or not, you know, the proper process or procedure has been followed in the engagement of the EFCC chairman. Do you think there is any issue there?
No, there's no issue. The only issue that has been raised, which for me, has to be considered by the government, is that we have in this country the Federal Character Commission Act, and also by virtue of Section 14 of the Constitution, appointments must reflect federal character. So if you are going to have, you have the EFCC and the ICPC, the heads cannot come from the same zone. So if there are two positions in this country, in the public service, one must go to the north, one must come to the south. If there are 4, 2 must go to the north, 2 must come to the south. If there are 6, 1 must go to each geopolitical zone. That is the law in Nigeria today. So I am not comfortable with the fact, as of today, the heads of The EFCC and the ICPC are from the same zone. Apart from that, Mr. Olukoyede is eminently qualified to head the EFCC. My colleagues who have criticized the appointment have not looked at the laws, the relevant law, the relevant provision of the EFCC, which is Section 2, which provides that the chairman, right, must be at least an assistant commissioner of police or its equivalent in the security service or in a law enforcement agency. When Mr. Abdurrashid Bawa was appointed, there were people saying, no, this position is for police officers. And I said, no. If you had served in a law enforcement agency, you are qualified and you have acquired enough experience, you are qualified to head the EFCC. In the case of Mr. Olukoyede, he had been the chief of staff to the chairman of the EFCC. He has also been the secretary of that body, and of course a board member by virtue of his position as a secretary of the commission. Now, people are saying, oh, he hasn't acquired the cognate experience. The law does not say the cognate experience must be in that agency. So if you have a gentleman who is said to be a regulatory compliance consultant and, who has also worked in the detection of crime or fraud, accomplished, expert in those areas, you cannot say he hasn't acquired the cognate experience. Because cognate experience actually means your acquisition of the skills in the area we're talking about. So it does not mean it shall be in the EFCC. For instance, I know a lawyer who has been prosecuting for the EFCC since 2004 when the body took off. And I'm talking of more than any lawyer in Nigeria. He has successfully prosecuted corruption cases, financial crimes cases. I'm talking of Mr. Rotimi Jacobs, SAN. So there's no way you can say that such a lawyer who has prosecuted majority of the cases investigated by the EFCC has not acquired the cognate experience. So if you have a lawyer of 22 years who has spent the better part of his practice in detection of crimes, detection of fraud-related crimes, and who has acquired the knowledge at home and abroad, who has worked with international anti-fraud agencies like FBI, the fraud office in the UK and the rest of them, it is difficult to say, to question his competence. Again, as I said, the only area where I think the government will have to go back to the drawing table is also to ensure that the anti-graft agencies in the country are not headed by people from one region.
Okay. Chamberlain.
Yeah, morning, Mr. Falana. So, about this case of this Major General that has been sentenced, there's been lots of concerns and questions, especially when you now know that, look, we've channeled and still keep complaining that the military doesn't have enough funds to prosecute the war against terrorism. We had a former Minister of Sport here, Mr. Dallon, who also spoke about corruption during his time and the government at the time, how they needed to do a lot more than they had done. And then we get to hear this case. I mean, anti-corruption agencies, including rights activists, lawyers like yourself, have lent their voices to ensure that things go right. So with this case that has come up now, what needs to change in the way we fight corruption such that it is institutionalized, as many will have been calling, in order for us to have a proper direction? Because many don't think we're making a headway in our fight against corruption?
Well, in the first place, it has to be realized that the governments, generally, not just in Nigeria, governments do not fight corruption. It is the duty of the people, particularly victims of corruption, assisted or led by civil society organizations like the trade unions, civil rights movements, to expose corruption. And in the case of Nigeria, we must take advantage of the provisions of the law to write petitions, to follow up those petitions and ensure that they are fully investigated. And anybody who is indicted will have to be brought to book. As I did say earlier, because of class solidarity on the part of the government and those who are indicted for corruption, it's difficult for the government to muster the political will to fight corruption. Therefore, it is the duty of Nigerian people to expose corruption. The media used to fight corruption in Nigeria before the birth of the EFCC and ICPC and the rest of them. It was the duty of the media in Nigeria to fight corruption. In the days of Yutakami Aidaboyu, I'm not sure, Chamberlain, you know, you guys will know what I'm talking about. But in the 70s, all you needed to do, if you knew that a public officer was corrupt, you simply would go to a court, file an affidavit that this guy collected so much money, or he had awarded this contract to his friend or a family member, therefore he has committed corruption. From that moment, the press will pick it up and feast on it until the officer was forced to resign, or the officer decided on his own to quit the government. But these days, you know, the press, the media, you know, cannot be relied upon when it comes to exposing corruption. Maybe apart from today, maybe apart from Sahara reporters, you hardly find stories about corruption in other print and electronic media. So that area will have to be addressed. Secondly, we have to appreciate that corruption is an integral part of a capitalist system. And when you are running a peripheral capitalist system like our own, it's almost normal. It's almost normal to have corruption at this dangerous level. Therefore, it is no longer enough for Nigerian Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress to talk about removal of fuel subsidy, or, you know, fight for minimum wage or better conditions of service. If the bulk of the money meant for development is stolen, there's no way you can have improved conditions of service. And that is why it has to be a battle for all Nigerians to fight this dangerous economic system that we're operating. And of course, corruption that is part of it. But there's no way we can go on like this. And Nigerians have to realize that corruption is a manifestation of impunity. Because you have the Appropriation Law, Appropriation Act. Once somebody has stolen money, budgeted for building a hospital or constructing roads, they has committed a violation of the Appropriation Act or the Appropriation Law of a state. Today, apart from Kano State, there is no state in Nigeria that is fighting corruption. It's only Kano State that has an anti-graft agency.
Well, the thing is, Mr. Father, I mean, the media, the way they report and investigate corruption and report it will definitely differ in terms of print and electronic, where one requires visuals for people to speak about certain things. But we hear you on that particular matter. But now, particularly for security agencies, what should change? Because now, you know, usually they'll say, look, when it has to do with budgets for security, there's little or no questions that can be asked because they tell you, look, this is highly classified, these are security concerns. In fact, they have security votes in many cases, and they don't want to speak up about what should be done about that. Now that this kind of corruption cases are coming up in the security circle, should we have a second look at what happens to security votes and the way they answer questions about it?
Well, with profound respect, there's no provision for security votes under the law. The Section 217 of the Constitution, provides that the armed forces shall be adequately funded, while Section 215 of the Constitution has created the Nigerian police force, and there shall be no other force, to compete with the Nigerian police force. So if the security agencies in our country are funded, or the money meant to fund them to acquire arms and ammunition and to improve the conditions of life of the officers or the members of the armed forces or the police force is stolen or diverted, the society must be interested, because it's akin to crimes against humanity to steal money meant for counter-insurgency operations. And that is why we must be interested in security votes. What you call security votes at the federal and state level are a legacy of a corrupt military regime, the Babangida junta. We never knew anything about, security vote. Today, I think the last study, done by Transparency International, about 241 billion naira goes for security votes in the country. Any public fund must be accounted for. So if you say, the police cannot cope with maintaining security in my state, therefore we need 2 billion every month for security, then you must account for it in the parliament. That is what the Constitution has provided for. So we must be interested in monitoring, in tracking public funds, so that we can have development in our country. Right now, the government is taking loans to pay salaries, to fund projects, because the economy is totally mismanaged. Totally. And we must go beyond simply fighting corruption. How do you erect a system that will reduce corruption to the barest minimum? How do you collect money, all the country, by foreign, agencies, multinational corporations, and departments of the government? For me, it's not about chasing one or two people or what the EFCC does now. You reel out figures of number of people convicted, and at the end of the day, these are, internet fraudsters, young people who engage in what you call Yahoo operations. Whereas those who cause them to engage in such criminality are moving freely in town. We know them. So why will a young man engage in Yahoo operations if he or she is gainfully engaged? So these are the areas we have to look at. Why is our country poor? Why are we taking loans? Why don't we collect the money owed the country by NNPC, by oil companies to the tune of over $100 billion? I was amazed yesterday when I read that, the government is going to again to take a loan of $1.5 billion. I said, I beg your pardon. When the money...
Mr. Falano, again, if I may come in, I am just to also emphasize that we hear you when you say that there needs to be so much more exposure of corruption on the part of the media. But let me ask you this. On those that have been exposed... I
didn't say corruption on the part of the media.
By the investigations done by the National Assembly, are you satisfied? Because one of the things that people have been asking is, what exactly have come out of those investigations? Even where we all have seen that there was corruption in this particular process or in this institution, nothing seems to have been done. What are the people supposed to do about that?
Maokwe, I didn't say there is corruption in the media. I don't make general statements, you know, because you can accuse me of a fallacy of generalization if I say there is corruption in the media, you know. But what I'm saying is that the media no longer, you know, fight corruption as it used to do. But having said that, again, it's our duty to follow up on public hearing by the National Assembly. Just last week, I sent a letter to the Finance Committee of the Senate because last year, 2 years ago, that body had conducted a public hearing where it was revealed that for the past 20 years, the money destined for the Federation account by way of dividends and feed gas and taxes paid by the LNG in Rivers State total about $32 billion. Again, in the last couple of years, additional $1.5 billion has been added. And I'm writing to I've written to the Senate committee, please, can we have a copy of your report under the Freedom of Information Act? Because that's about $33.7 billion. If within 7 days I do not get a reply, I will go to court to ask the court to compel the committee to give me a copy. So we must take advantage of the provisions of the law. I mean, Mr. Emefiele, the former governor of the central bank, told the whole world that we have printed enough money, we have given enough money to the banks, and people didn't have the money. People attacked the banks. Some banks' buildings were set on fire. Some people were killed. Some died collapsed while queuing up, you know, for money. And I had to write to the central bank, please, under the Freedom of Information Act, can I know how much was printed? To my utter dismay, whereas the central bank collected about 3.2 trillion, mop up about 3.2 trillion from customers and others, the bank only printed 402 billion naira. So we must take advantage of the law and use the law to expose corruption and get information to defend our people.
Well, Mr. Falana, we're almost out of time, and I think it's very important to say I didn't say that you said there was corruption in the media. I only said that we heard you when you said that the media needs to do more to expose corruption.
Thank you.
But just quickly, talking about the law now, you've also intervened on the EFCC chairman matter. But I'm looking at Section 2 right now, which talks about being a serving or retired member of any government, security, or law enforcement agency, not below the rank of an assistant commissioner of police or equivalent, and possess not less than 15 years cognate experience. Yes. Are you saying that and ought to be ignored in the appointment of an EFCC
I am saying
chairman?
that the cognate experience does not mean in the EFCC or in the police force or in a law enforcement agency. If you look at the experience, the meaning of the word cognate experience actually means acquiring enough skills or experience in a related organization. So if somebody has been a private lawyer and has devoted for 22 years and has devoted a substantial part of his practice to detecting fraud, you know, and so on and so forth, you cannot say that it's not qualified under and cognate experience. That's the point I'm making.
No, Mr. Falana, the question is, I mean, the problem is that the new EFCC appointed chairman is not a member of any security agency. That's the quarrel.
He had worked in the EFCC as secretary and a member of the board, so he's talking of law enforcement agency. Look at it very well. Not only security agency. Security agency or law enforcement agency. And in the case of Bauer, when this argument was raised, I said, no, the law is talking of law enforcement agency, and the EFCC is a law enforcement agency. So you can't say, because Bauer was not in the police force, therefore he was not qualified to be appointed the chairman of the EFCC.
There's so many other issues we would have loved to take you up on, Mr. Falana, but we're completely out of time right now. We have to thank you so much for the perspective.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Mr. Femi Falana is a senior advocate of Nigeria. Thank you again for being here. So some of your own contribution to this program this morning. First is from Austin Obey, who is talking about the CBN Forex review. He writes, if the government continues with inconsistent policies like the latest CBN Forex update, will only trigger shocks to the manufacturing sector. For over 20 years now, there's been a mass exodus of FDI multinationals in Nigeria. The latest is GSK. The government must focus on power, energy, and infrastructure. Manufacturers can then invest more in their core business rather than buying generators, water treatment plants, construction of roads, and equally provide security for their operations. All these will result into increase in productivity and new jobs created.
So Paul Agbolade is talking about access to official FX. He says we need to outrightly ban the importation of those products we can locally produce. Otherwise, Nigerians' high taste for imported products will never allow local production to thrive. On the issue of competitiveness, our regulatory agencies such as SON, NAFDAC, Consumer Protection Agency, and Price Regulatory Agency should wake up to their organizational mission and vision. Without adequate manufacturing, every infrastructural development, including power generation, will be underutilized in the long run.
Oshinowo Kingsley says Nigeria can never get out of the shackles of underdevelopment if we rely on the importation of products that we are endowed with, the primary raw materials. We strain our forex, import inflation, expand unemployment, and kill domestic industries. Pastor Law Alpha, you say the army as a security outfit seems to be operating in a space which it is determining, and as a result, it may be difficult to discover if there is financial corruption in its ranks. But I also like to just let these ones out there. I know we don't have it, but they sent it in to let Mr. Falana know that Oyo State had anti-corruption agency. It's headed by Honorable Justice Eni Esson, retired, and the agency is very proactive. And then it says, with respect to Mr. Falana, he didn't answer the doctrine of compact. It says the doctrine of compact simply means that the Nigerian military personnel becomes subject not only to military law, but he also remains bound by the ordinary civil and criminal law of the country. All right, so there you go. Those are some feedback that came through from those of you who watch. We appreciate your thoughts and comments. Please keep them coming because we will be back here again tomorrow. Thank you for watching. I'm Chamberlain Oso.
Thank you. It's good to be back again. I'm Maokwe Okunyuse.
Welcome back, Maokwe. Well, interestingly, Mr. Falana also mentioned that the soldiers are indeed subject not only to their own court-martial and all, but to the Constitution of Nigeria and the courts in the country. Thank you and have a wonderful day. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms.